And I always wanted to do a shot where somebody would throw it like a lumberjack's axe, but we never had a reason to do that in the show.
If you need to fight with honor, you better do it with the right weapons at your side. From batleths to Mek'leths, the Klingons have had some of the most incredible and iconic weapons in Star Trek history. And today, we are here with Dan Curry, the man behind some of these incredibly creative designs. Today is a good day to dive into the Roddenberry Archives. We have our own Klingon arsenal today.
With the batleth, what my idea was is something that could be used like a staff, but it could also be used for classic saber moves like a glissade. And it could be held in the center for defensive, moving through a crowd. You could let go, you could block, underhand, and also if you block an opponent's weapon, the weapon would glide away from you, and it works as a lever. So say if you go underneath the sternum, you could use this as a fulcrum and rip up through it. So everything has a ergonomic sense about it.
Yeah, it also, you can definitely see the influence of more Asian weapons, because a lot of Western ones are very sharp, pointy, right? Like you look at medieval weaponry, it's very like, this is a stick, we're gonna stick you with it. This is a more elegant, I would say.
And I always wanted to do a shot where somebody would throw it like a lumberjack's axe, but we never had a reason to do that in the show.
Yet.
I was visual effects supervisor, producer, second unit director, title designer, worked with the stunt team and did a lot of the conceptual design work, especially CG creatures. The important thing about the visual effects department is visual effects is a team sport. It requires a lot of people with different talents and different skills to create the illusions that became the Star Trek universe. Worf was to inherit some traditional Klingon weapon, and I looked at the proposed design, and it was similar to a pirate's cutlass, and I'd been imagining what became the batleth, but had no reason to create one. So I went to executive producer Rick Berman and said, Rick, let's do something that's ergonomically sound. Even as a boy, I could always tell a fake movie weapon. So I made a foam core batleth, and it didn't have a name yet. And I showed Rick, and I said, well, if we could do this, it makes ergonomic sense, and it would be something new and uniquely Klingon. So Rick, in his traditional manner, said if it was 2 inches shorter, I'd accept it. And we pulled in the great Dennis Madelone, our stunt coordinator, and showed it to him. And Dennis walked in and looked at it with a scowl and said, I can't work with that. And then I showed him what I had in mind and how it could be used, and it did a little demo. And within a few minutes, Dennis went from a skeptic to an evangelist for the batleth.
What is some of the weaponry that inspired, because you said you'd already been thinking about
the Chinese fighting crescent, which is about this big, and it's just a little crescent and kind of like a super brass knuckle. The other one is the Chinese double axe, which is a sword that has a hook on the end, that same kind of crescent shape as a handguard. Those are the inspirations. And then, of course, there's the staff. The other thing about the batleth is I wanted it to be a surgeon's weapon as opposed to a butcher's weapon. So it had different things, like the important part was having a decapitation flange at the end, and it would work as a lever like a Swiss can opener.
We have some more Klingon things that we want to take a look at. We are heading literally inside the R5 right now to take a look at a piece of history, very much from you. It would hopefully be fair to say you know Klingons.
Oh yes, I've seen that before. Yeah, when I first came back from overseas, I did biomedical illustration for a couple of years in New York, and that enabled me to imagine what the internal anatomy of a Klingon would be. It had to fit inside a human actor, but be very different.
Yes, I'm looking at like the rib cage right now. It's a very kind of more geometric pattern to it. What are some of the other differences that you proud of highlighting?
An extra bone in the upper leg. And the rib cage was so they could take the shock of blows, because it would spread the force of impact a little bit, like ablative armor.
What is happening down here?
Well, it's an extra toenail, which is why they never had soccer on Kronos. If you were kicking your opponent and your bare feet, if you hit him in the right spot, you would eliminate all hope of having progeny.
Was this prompted by anybody asking you to do this, or were you like, I want to do an exploration of Klingon anatomy?
I decided to do an exploration of Klingon anatomy on my own, but we wound up using it later on Star Trek Enterprise as part of a Klingon anatomy chart in a Klingon medical facility of some sort. And the art department made this incredibly beautiful odd-shaped chart with Klingon writing and call-outs pointing to different things, so it wound up being used on the show. The original is an oil painting.
Oh, the Mek'leth, which originally started as this beautiful design. Can you, with popsicle stick reinforcements.
When Michael Dorn signed on to Deep Space Nine, I got a phone call from him. Daniel, I need a new weapon. And so Michael came over to my house and showed him a lot of weapons I'd brought back from Asia. I showed him the Nepali Kora sword, and this is the front end of that. And I said, well, let's use the front end of that, but make this pure Klingon. So I wanted every area to be a cutting surface, and I wanted something that you could do saber grip, hammer grip, you could throw it like a hatchet, but also in defensive mode, if it was downhand, the dull part would be against your arm. It would also deflect your opponent's weapon away from you, and it could also do all sorts of things, and every one of these surfaces is a cutting edge. Michael and I went out in the backyard and fooled around with a spear and a couple of other weapons. So in order to make the cardboard mock-up strong enough, I reinforced it with popsicle sticks. Original design was not changed. It's exactly as it was in the show.
Yeah, we have one signed by Michael Dorn, our favorite Klingon. What are some of the other kind of fun things from your life that actually you ended up utilizing? Because like, especially when you guys were doing practical side of the visual effects, I'm sure there were a lot of MacGyvering things you had to do.
The important thing is, as a child, playing with physical toys, because by playing with small-scale toys, you learn to see things independent of their original purpose and their scale. So that led to the creation of a lot of the artifacts and alien spaceships. And my experiences living in remote areas in what some people would consider exotic parts of the world helped me visualize alien cultures.
Let's go to the one that is going to be your namesake in some ways.
Okay, well, this is when Michael signed on to Picard Season 3, I got another phone call. Daniel, another new weapon. And so they had designed a sword that Michael didn't like, so he called me up and wanted it to be true Klingon, as he said, true Dan Curry. And so the same thing, and I decided to incorporate some elements of the Batleth so that you could grab it so it could be two-hand.
You can see the kind of...
Yeah.
Yep.
Two hands for cross-checking. You could reach across your opponent and cut him on the way back. But unlike any other sword I've seen in a book or anywhere in history, you could grab this end and let go with that end and use the back end as an axe. You could grapple. It would also guide your opponent's weapons away from you in a block. And there's a lot of things you could do that you couldn't do with a normal sword.
Yeah. And this is, of course, called the
Kur'leth. Spelled with a K, but the phenom is.
We'll take the Klingon transliteration of it as still yours. And we do have one more additional piece of screen-used Klingon weaponry with us today, and that is this bad boy.
Yes, the original series Klingon Dakta, a slimmer weapon, but when in need, you have these things that can help prevent enemy blades from cutting your fingers off and avoiding necessity of ordering 3 beers like this.
And you were saying that the original series had a different handle.
The original series, they were red with dark stripes on it and a rectangular handle rather than this one, which looks like a handle on a survival knife, but nonetheless extremely cool.
Dan, thank you for bringing this incredible arsenal of Klingon weaponry. Thank you for all of your contributions to Star Trek and for joining us here inside the Roddenberry Archive.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for being such a gracious host.
Thank you so much. Remember to join us next time back on Inside the Roddenberry Archive. Ta-da!